Welcome to another episode of Barman Saturdays, and this week I also decided to take a look at Dognapped, Superhero Dog Rescue. And while that does sound pretty good, the sad reality is this movie is rather dull, a lot like Christmas Bounty. Like, it just plods along, it just feels like a really sluggish pace. Like, the movie itself might be listed as being like 75 minutes long, but it's 75 minutes of like torture because of how slow everything feels. Especially when the movie starts, because, we got just a bunch of kids going to the park to get on some swings. And that's basically it. We watch them, interact, basically shooting this one girl down. She's like, well, let's play superheroes if we have to wait. And they're like, no. They're like, superheroes are stupid because they're not real. Ugh. Reminds me of my childhood when people would tell me Pokemon is gay. Yeah, that was the thing when I was going to school in, like, 4th grade. They're like, Pokemon is gay. I'm like, okay, it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise, but, you can keep saying that if you want, I guess. Doesn't even make sense. I mean, I don't know how Pokemon can be a homosexual, because, it's not really a real living person. Ugh, but whatever. It's an odd choice in description, what can I say? An odd adjective. Oh yeah, I guess I should talk about the movie. But like I said, it's rather boring. The best bits probably can all be crammed into like the last half hour. So, if I was the person writing this film, I would have basically cut out all the swing stuff and probably just moved into focusing more on the villain. Because hearing him talk about his plans and how he's perfected his plan because he's read every comic book and therefore is, make sure not to make any of the mistakes the supervillains made. And he actually has this long mental list apparently of all these issues. Because he's telling the leader of the kids, he's like, mistake number 345. And explaining how he managed to fix that problem.
Supervillain's mistake number 117. Using an army of animals that gets out of the villain's control.
The Adventures of the Druid Warriors, issue 17.
That's why I spent several days training the dogs to respond to my commands using ultrasonic whistles. This subsonic whistle opens the cages. I thought of everything.
So my question is, how was he planning on killing her? He's like, I'm going to just get rid of this loose end. Because, that'd be a mistake, leaving the hero alive when I got them at my mercy. But all he's threatening her with is a super soaker. Like, what are you going to do? Get her wet, or does it contain acid? And she manages to get him to change his mind about that by making some suggestions about other crimes he could pull off and admitting that she makes her own comics. He's like, oh, comics I haven't read yet, huh? Maybe you'll reveal new mistakes I need to avoid. Or give me new crazy and unpredictable plans. I'm sure I can do that with a little coercion, like threatens her with some, like, clippers. Then throws her in a small room, with a rocket so she can actually send a message to the rest of the kids to come rescue her. Like, yep, talks about those mistakes, and then gets tricked into making that mistake on the grounds that, she might be able to make him come up with even crazier plans, like using mind-controlled alligators, with brain control chips in them, or taking over the world with satellites, messing with weather. All the standard crazy stuff, I suppose. But yeah, the villain's probably the best character in the movie, because the kids tend to be underperformers, I suppose. I mean, it gotta come some slack, It's hard to perfect your craft when you're, like, in your pre-teens here. Or I guess maybe they're teenagers, but they're not, had time to perfect their skills, really. So it feels like a rather unenthusiastic stage performance for the most part. And there's some audio issues in the film as well at points, which goes to show the low budget. Which is why I expect at some point someone's going to show up in the comment section and yell at me for picking on this movie. And I suppose they'd argue, it's not fair, it's a low-budget indie film, you shouldn't pick on it. You're a big-time YouTuber. I'm like, have you seen my subscriber count and my viewership? I am not a big-time YouTuber by any stretch of the imagination. please don't bring it up, because that happened on another indie film I reviewed, Kid Pirates. Actually, I'd recommend watching that one, because that is a relatively entertaining ride, because it moves at a relatively decent pace outside the bike montage at the start. But yeah, Dognapped, I'd say, if you're going to watch it, you might as well skip to like the last 30 minutes or so. That's where all the good stuff really happens. Everything before that, well, it just plods along painfully. Till next time, then. See ya.
Supervillain's mistake number 324. The villain steals the explosives, putting the police on alert.
Detective Joe Mercury, issue 56.
Instead of stealing some dynamite, I went from town to town, bought every firecracker in sight, until I gathered enough explosives to blow up the whole town.